this?
Okay. You want to hold this?
No.
Hi,
Hello.
everyone. This is Marco, and this is Omar, tutors of Apartamento. The third one is Nacho, who is not here today. Well, we decided that, we realized that probably all of you know Apartamento. So we decided that we'll try to give you some more insight and try to give you, an idea behind, what we do and some of the sort of key elements and key words that makes Apartamento relevant for us.
Well, it's funny, just Wilfred mentioned the ABC book, and our presentation is pretty much about the same, with the same idea. And of course, the first letter is A, and it's for Apartamento. And it was in 2006 when we started thinking of the magazine, but it came pretty natural. The three of us were looking for an apartment, maybe to buy it, maybe to rent it, but we were kind of interested in moving to our own place. And it was hard. We started looking at magazines, and at least I did. I started looking at interior magazines to get some inspiration. Oh, maybe I can get this kind of apartment, this kind of other apartment. And that's how we realized that we were, letter B, pretty bored. And what we were bored is because most of these magazines would show these kind of images, and they were probably great spaces, but they were very boring in the way they were photographed, and there was no life at all in those pictures. So actually, letter C is for Clutter. And what is Clutter? What Clutter for us, it's life. It's actually what happens when you live in a space. You live, not everything is perfectly arranged sometimes, and it's not perfection. It's life in general. It's it's your own apartment, it's personality. And we wanted to make that as our statement for the magazine. So hard in the beginning that we chose this crazy picture for the first issue of Apartamento. And of course, we thought we were going to sell maybe 4 or 5 issues and give the rest away to our friends. Because it was even for some stores, they were really, really scared of this. What is this magazine about? Just messy magazines on the floor. And maybe for some people it was difficult to understand.
This is for DIY. When we began the magazine, we were really interested, as Omar said, about the idea of how people live, how people modify their spaces, how they occupy them, how things happen. And we were fascinated, and there was, I think in 2008, 2009, when we began, there was this sort of trend, and I guess it was there before and it's still going, of DIY. And me and Nacho ended up meeting Max in Basel, during Art Basel, and it was the first encounter for us with him. And we thought, why not commission a DIY chair on the basis of Enzo Mari and Autoprogettazione? And that's how we began this series. And Max was the first one that sort of this sort of instruction how to do your own things. And it was a very relevant moment for us because it was also a way of us understanding more about design and and learning and who the designers were. E is a very important letter for us, is for everyday life interiors. Everyday life interiors is basically the fundament of Apartamento. It's the way that we look at interiors. And for us, interiors is people, people living in their spaces, and people doing things, people taking a shower or what else. People playing, and it's a way of looking at homes, not necessarily for the furniture, the objects, like the kitchen that Omar was showing before, but for the the situations, the things that happen, the life that goes through them. And for us, this is always the key element when we think if a story is worth for us. And we've changed over the years, as you'll see later, but it's still a very strong and important word, and we always go through the process of analyzing every single story. Is this everyday life interiors for us? What does it mean? F is for fans. I don't know if, I hope you guys are fans, but we got bigger fans in Korea. Back in 2009, somebody decided to, throw a big party for us, grand opening. Somebody decided to open a cafe in Seoul. And this was sort of a moment where we realized, are we that big, or what's going on? And they, stealing our name. But it was funny. We took it also like as an idea of like, it's interesting to see how other people reappropriate, and to be honest, I mean, we thought it was funny. I don't think it exists anymore, but I don't know, we were shocked and amazed at the same time. It was
we're like shocked, and I mean, we didn't think that was right, but at the same time, it was funny just to know that somebody ripped off our logo from the cover and made a cafe in South Korea.
And we were not invited to opening, but it was still like we're still happy about it. Facebook gave it the opportunity to peek into it.
It was nice to receive all these pictures from friends going there, like selfies, like, oh, you got a hotel. Also, it was a little bit dangerous because people thought that we were rich all of a sudden, and we're just like opening, cafes around the world.
G's for Girard. I don't know if you know Alexander Girard. He's one of the key designers with Eames and Nelson of, I think, American modernist design. And for us, Alexander Girard was sort of like an interesting story because we never featured that people. I mean, Apartamento is about everyday life interiors. And we met like Alexander's grandson, Corey, in the back there, and his family. And suddenly Corey said, come to Santa Fe, let's explore the legacy of the family. We're all artists, we're all like sort of folk art, making our own things, and Alexander was like a big collector. Santa Fe is actually a museum, a wing dedicated to his collection and a whole archive. And so it was actually the first time as well that we managed to take a trip, the three of us, all somewhere, and like spend 2 days with these people, speaking hours with them, recording. Naturally took a lot of pictures, and we went to their houses, their archives, it was fascinating because it opened up a new thing for us. It was about the idea of legacy, about the idea of like, we didn't have to always have like a pretty person or somebody, old person sitting in the apartment, but open up a new way of telling story, try to sort of build new ideas for the magazine.
So H has to be for home. But what is home? In this case, home is a book that we came across when we were on the making of Apartamento. And it kind of gave like a sort of an intellectual, thing to the whole thing, because as we said, we were very curious about how people really live and how they really arrange their own homes without, like decorators and people like that, although now we love decoration. But this book, actually, it was very interesting for us. And one of the quotes, hominess is not neatness, otherwise everyone would live in replicas of the kind of sterile and impersonal homes that appear in interior design and architectural magazines. What these spotless rooms lack, or what crafty photographers have carefully removed, is any evidence of human occupation. And for us, as we say, the human occupation is a very important thing. In spite of the artfully placed bases and casually arranged art books, the imprint of their inhabitants is missing. Can people really live without clutter? And this book was written almost 30 years before we started the magazine.
No, 30 years now.
Yeah, 30 years now. And it was very interesting to see that somebody was having more or less the same feelings that we did. And it was kind of an endorsement to say like, oh, maybe, we should do the magazine.
And it was also interesting because we became friends with Witold. I mean, and it was also, I think this part was almost the only editorial we ever had in the magazine in issue 1. If one of you has it, you probably can find it in there. So it was almost like a nice way to sort of like credit what we felt for and, keep moving forward.
So I is for illustration. And the fact is our fascination by interiors doesn't finish on pictures. We love illustration, and we love all sorts of illustrations in order to break our limits and to explore other possibilities to explain stories. So in these last almost 10 years, we explore everything from comics, from Andy Rementer, I'm sure you know him very well, to apartments or stories illustrated, text included, to more like moody personal pictures or portfolios, like these two cases. For us, it's another way to also to change the rhythm of the magazine, because sometimes we're afraid like too many apartments, too many things of the same. I put together the magazine and I always stressed out these guys, say like, oh guys, we're at the end of we're closing the issue and everything looks the same. It's boring. You don't see when one story finishes and when the other starts. So for us, illustration is also a way to break this rhythm and to bring something new.
And I think it's a way of expanding collaborations, as we said before. It's something like to push always your limits and and create new connections that brings you somewhere else. I mean, most of these stories have helped us develop like, new stories and new ideas as well. Like, and well, I mean, you said it better.
Right, so J is for Judd, is for Donald Judd. And actually it was the cover of our last issue. And it was interesting because for us it was the first time that we made a cover story. We usually choose the cover. We do a little battle between us, and it's like we fight a lot, and then it's like I like this picture, and then Nacho likes the other pictures, and Nacho wants somebody looking on, on the cover, and then I hate people looking at the cover, and then Marco comes and says, okay guys, there's some fight where like, is this? That's how we usually like choose the covers. We try to keep a collection. I mean, for us, the collection, the idea of collection is very important. Like, we want people to keep the magazine. The contents are all, I mean, not like timeless, but it's something that they don't update in few days. So this was the first time, though, that we planned that should be on the cover, and that was a cover story, and was one of our biggest stories on the legacy of Donald Judd and his two kids. And actually, it was also another, as we did with Girard, it was another opportunity to travel. We didn't travel ourselves, but we sent a team there. We went to Marfa, where Donald Judd and his family used to live for a big part of their life. And then we structured the story in different parts. One was showing the interiors of all the properties they have in Marfa, that they're really incredible. But there are also a lot of personal pictures. This is their apartment in Spring Street in New York. And we had access to the few images that they have of the whole family, just like having breakfast or, spending time in the ranches. And it was very interesting also to talk with the kids and know more about the artist. And especially for us, was also interesting because he's a minimal artist and everything is about like kind of, you think that it's about like cleanness and minimalism and like not really clutter. But then sorry for going back, but if you see the way they used to live in New York, it's pretty much clutter, and we think it's very far from what you can see now on the foundation. But then together with these images, we also thought like everybody was like paying attention to his art, and his objects, in fact, were very, very interesting as well. And he was a huge collector of everyday like, objects that he would find around the world. So we made these still lifes with the different collections, different materials and objects we found in the houses in Marfa. And we thought it was a very interesting way to approach his life and his taste.
Case for Kinder. I don't know how many of you know, but at some point, we actually had a kid supplement in the magazine. And again, this was also like another moment where we were trying to sort of get out our comfort zone, try to sort of create new ideas for ourselves to play with. The first one was, again, with Andy Rementer, and we had some stories with the interview with Enzo Mari and some kids' activities. The second one, James Jarvis, did it, and again, there was coloring books, and the third one with Olaf Burning. It was, again, another moment that we kind of like did, and then we moved on. We tried, it was an experiment to be able to like learn more for ourselves, to be able to push the magazine forward. L is for last page. Probably many of you like look at magazine the other way around. When they get it, you always look from the final page. And for us, content is like, one of the most important thing. And we always think very hard, like Omar said about the cover, we always, have an argument, what's the last story, what's the last page? This is the first issue. It was like Linus Beale's wife and, newborn baby. And it was like this sort of moment where we realized, we had to keep this series. And as you see in every issue, last page is a very fundamental part on how we build the magazine, how we put it together.
So M is for mock-up. And in fact, the mock-up was a very important thing for us because when we were in the making of the magazine and we were thinking of how it could be, or how our ideas can turn into a physical object, we kind of needed to try it. So one day we just printed out all what we had at the moment, which were mostly images, pulled from the internet or from friends that we asked for, like, can you send me like pictures of your apartment or photographers that we loved? And this is the result. We already knew that the name was going to be Apartamento, and the format was going to be small because we didn't have money to print it bigger. But the truth is, like, it felt right in our hands, and it actually was a very interesting tool to meet other people and advertisers and collaborators, and finally make the first issue. N is for Natalie Duper. Sometimes, along making the magazine, we meet some people that they become more than contributors or more than people that we feature. And one of them is Natalie Duper. She's an artist living in Milan. And we really love her work. She makes amazing still life, paintings of still lifes. But we also realized, and we discovered later, that she was one of the founding members of the design movement Memphis in Milan. So that made everything even more interesting. And then we became friends, and after going several times to her studio and seeing so many materials, like drawings from the 80s and from more recently, and spending time with Natalie, we encouraged her to make a book about these drawings, and that's a book that we published last year, and it's called Don't Take These Drawings Seriously. And it's just a simple compilation of all the drawings of different objects, furniture, and things that she did in the 80s. So another person, always for Omar Suleiman. Most of you will know the singer, pop star, if you want, Omar Suleiman. And for us, it was kind of a different story on the approach, because he was kind of not homeless, but he wasn't in his house. He's Syrian, so for obvious reasons, he wasn't living in Syria, but he was living in the border of Turkey, and it wasn't really his house. And this is Suleiman in his how you say, like,
living room.
Yeah, in his living room. And it was also a challenge for us because, first of all, it was very difficult to send a photographer, like our kind of roster of photographers, to Turkey and to the border. And also because it challenged our idea of interiors. But at the end of the day, we stand for reality, and this is reality. This is Omar Suleiman ironing his chilaba, ready for the concert.
Piece for press portrait. As you know, when you do something, a magazine, or you're speaking, and you got to represent yourself. And we've been trying a few times to try to get it right. It doesn't always work right. But we always think that, we all live in different places, and when we meet, we end up drinking quite a bit, because that helps, moving the flows. And again, this was a session we did in Barcelona, and it's tricky, sometimes it doesn't work out. Cues for quantity. As we said before, and we're trying to make a statement, for us, quality in terms of content is a very important thing. But also, like, you realize when you make a magazine, we started with 5,000 copies, I think, yeah?
Yeah.
And today we make 36,000. And it's a very important thing today, because we still make the magazine by ourselves. And it's a very, something very proud of. And it's still like a big thing for us to constantly keep printing this number, and eventually grows, who knows?
Yeah, it's kind of for ourselves, is the way to say, like, okay, we're doing it right. We can't print more because we're selling. So it's like, I think every single dollar we get we spend it in, like, printing more.
It boosts our ego,
magazines.
like having many copies,
yeah,
and big
like,
pallets.
yeah, we're doing it well.
R is for Robbie. Probably none of you know Robbie, the one on the left. Robbie's our managing editor, and he's a very important part of the magazine. We always talk about Nacho, Omar, and me, but he's been working with us for a long time. And we met him in Tokyo in a pop-up restaurant we're doing. And I think he's if you need to know everything about Apartamento, Robbie's definitely one of them.
So S is for still life, and some of you may know that we always do this series of objects or materials in the magazine. It's something that Nacho and I do, and it's our way of contributing for the magazine. We feel like by being the editors, it's always about, like, curating the contents, but it's not doing anything. And it's a way to show that we can also do something, and we can also take the risk of doing something. But ultimately, was also, in the beginning, we were very scared of, like, not showing any kind of objects in the magazine. So that's why we said, like, oh, we should have a section with the still life, so we show products. But at the end of the day, it ended being, like, just a kind of artistic approach to showing different materials. and kind of challenging ourselves on every new series with like, oh, can we do it with eyes now? Oh yeah, let's do it with eyes, let's do it with that. And it's a nice exercise that every time we want to kind of cut from the magazines, like, okay, basta, this is the last time we do it. But every time we say, come on, let's give a try again. And it kind of makes us happy to have a little contribution in our magazine. So T is for toilet. And well, we realized we show quite a lot of toilets in the magazine. As Rob was saying, for some people, creativity can be found in many different places. We think, like, as in MTV Cribs used to say, this is where the shit happens. And where mostly magazines maybe don't cover, it's toilets, and we have so many different kind of toilets, like artistic, like handmade toilets, very decorated ones, amazing views, little collection places where you can kind of, where you can keep the magazine, when you can keep Apartamento. And actually, I'm always very happy when we go to people's houses and you see that Apartamento is in the toilet. It means that, somebody's taking, at least you read it for a while. So use for useful. And well, something that maybe some of you may have questions sometimes, like why these guys don't have a website, right? We've been asked many times, and we thought, oh yeah, maybe we should have our digital platform, our digital thing. But we always thought that Apartamento has to be printed, and we make the magazine to be a printed object. We never felt like too, attracted by doing a website with the same contents, or we didn't have time to do something else. But then I think every day we get more and more attached to our phones and to our mobile devices, and we also realize that we start having an important archive of stories that if people don't have the first issues, and some are difficult to find, it's really sad that nobody can actually read it. So that's why this year we came up with this app. We just launched it. You can download it on the App Store. And it's a very simple app where you can find seven stories at a time. Every day there is a new one, but an old one gets deleted. So you can always read all these 7 stories. But it's always refreshing, and they're all from our archive. So it's kind of random stories put together, which is also an experiment for us because it's a non-editing version of Apartamento. It's like you don't know what the story goes next to the other, and it's quite interesting.
V's for Vases. Referencing to Instagram and all the images you can find. We find a lot of vases on Instagram. Apartamento definitely looks really good next to vases. There's like small vases, bigger vases, older vases, square vases, vases on tables and carpets, multiple vases. So in case you're wondering what to do with your next copy of Apartamento, it looks really good. And if you don't have any vases, you can always take a selfie. It would be probably appropriate. W is for Wes Anderson. Wes Sanderson is another one of the stories where we felt we were entering a new part of our life as a magazine, how we wanted to approach interiors or everyday life interiors. And we could never, he was very private. We can never get to his place in Paris or New York. And so it was like a moment where we realized, why don't we look at his movies and his attention to details and building sets and the interior. So again, as Girard or as many other stories that Omar showed, I think it was a very important moment for us to be able to understand how can you tell stories that how can we move forward? How can we tell new stories for the readers? And it was a very interesting and probably successful story for us as well. X is for 10th anniversary. Well, we're not there yet, but we want to share with you the fact that next year we're going to probably we are actually celebrating next fall.
I hope.
Hopefully we get there with 3 more issues. And it's a nice time for us to reflect. I mean, we don't know yet what the reflection will be. We're talking about books, we're talking about other things, but it's also time to look at what we did. And and for us, for example, the spine is one of those moments where we were able to try to create something that was important for us, and it was also again a moment of moving forward and trying new things. Y is for thank you. Thank you for listening through us and from being a nice audience today.
And we last the last letter, of course, Z is for zucchini. And that was also the last page for a book that we published last Christmas, and it was a charity book, and it was called ABC Fotos and Grafies. It was only published in Catalan, it was a children's book, but it was our opportunity to look backwards and make a selection of all our photographers, so all the people that have collaborated over the last issues, and make this photo book with, like, each of them, we gave them a letter and they make a picture with that. And, well, eventually this presentation was inspired of that idea, and we hope you enjoy it.
Thank you.